All right, so this is going to be a translation and discussion of Pliny's letter 10:7, which is a response from Trajan to Pliny of the previous two letters, 10:5 and 10:6, in which Pliny is going to request citizenship for his doctor and a couple of other free people, liberti. And so let's go ahead and begin. So Trajan, and we imply the salutum dicit, says greetings to Pliny in the dative case. I have proposed, proposui, and I have proposed to give, not rashly, not recklessly, Alexandrian citizenship according to. Now, secundum is obviously the word secundus, meaning second or following or favoring. Here it's going to obviously have the sense of according to or following in the precedent. And that is what the institutionem is going to be the precedent itself. So, following the precedent of the emperor, so he is obviously Trajan acting in a capacity of trying to do what previous predecessors of his have done. So following the precedent of the emperors, I have proposed to give Alexandrian citizenship, but I have done so non timere, not recklessly, not rashly. Said, but since or when, remember that whenever you see a cum, what you first need to do is see is there an ablative with it. There is not, so it is not going to mean with, and so therefore your possible translations are when, since, although. The reason why there are two whens is because it could be when as in a specific time when, that would require an indicative verb, or it could be the circumstantial when, general circumstances, not specific, which is going to be then the subjunctive. Now, obviously, what we have here then is a perfect subjunctive in which you have the perfect stem and your perfect subjunctive endings, erim, eris, erit, and so forth and so on. And so therefore, it is going to be the when, since, although. We look for a tamen in the main clause. We do not see one, and so we eliminate although and go with when or since. And so let's go ahead and I will say since. But since you have obtained, you have requested now or already Roman citizenship for Arpi, that's what we call him in my class, but it is Arpokratos, but we call him Arpi. And then here is merely a positive renaming who this fellow is, your doctor. Nevertheless, I do not sustain, I cannot bear, I cannot endure, as it were, to deny. And here what we're going to have as the indirect object of negare, hic petitione tuae, your this petition, your this request of yours. And so he's essentially saying that indeed I am going to give the Alexandrian citizenship, but I'm also going to grant to your request that he get the Roman citizenship. Remember that there are three levels of citizenship, or three levels that one can be in Egypt. One would just merely be a peregrinus, and then right above that you can have that of an Alexandrian, and then that you have as a Roman. And so Romam, or Romanus as it were, is indeed what he is going to be granted, but he is going to then obviously here get both of those. And so, continuing on, I am not able to sustain or endure to deny this petition of yours, or this your petition or request. You, ex quo nomo, out of which region? Here in the United States, we divide places by state, but it could be provinces like Canada. But here it is in Egypt a nomus, as it were. And so therefore, I'm just going to translate it as generalized region. I could say province, I could say state, whatever sort of thing is going to divide them. Heck, we could be like Switzerland's call them cantons. So, you, from which state he may be. And so it is obviously here a subjunctive, because presumably it is an indirect question. You will owe, or you will ought to make known, notum, to me. And so he's basically telling him, you need to let me know where this guy is from which province, from which state, from which canton, from which region in Egypt he is. And you will ought to do this. Nevertheless, ut, so that. Here we have another ut purpose clause with that subjunctive verb from mido midere. We fear a giant liar. So that I may send a letter tibi for you. This is your dative of interest or dative of advantage, in other words, on your behalf, so that I may send a letter on your behalf or for you to Pompeius Planta. And Pompeius Planta then is going to have two appositives telling us who exactly this guy is. The Praefectum Aegypti, the prefect of Egypt, and then he gives a second appositive indicating my friend. And so in other words, he is going to obviously relay the information to this fellow who is the prefect of Egypt in charge of obviously administering that region. Remember that when Egypt is brought into the empire by Augustus following the Battle of Actium, that Egypt is considered to be the personal property of the emperor. And senators who wish to travel there, then later on even moving forward, are going to have to seek special permission. And so in that way, it obviously is going to be governed in a slightly different way than other provinces around the empire. And for Trajan here, he has his good buddy Pompeius Planta. I'm in some ways reminded of like the mafia when one is watching The Sopranos and somebody new is introduced and they say, I'd like to introduce you to a friend of ours. A friend of ours is code word as obviously somebody who is involved and connected and in some ways approved of and protected. And that's what we see here, I think, in some ways. Amica meam, my friend, in that he is not only just a governmental official, but he is also somebody that Trajan obviously holds close to him. And so this is going to then be the fellow who receives this letter. And so it is again this purpose clause, so that I may send a letter on your behalf or for you, a dative of advantage, a dative of interest to this fellow who is obviously the administrator. So, short video, keep studying and make sure that you know the content of these letters.